Welcome back to week 4 of our BCBA Exam Prep Series. I'm Katherine Kellogg, and this week we're going over fundamental concepts from section B of the task list. Specifically, we're going to be talking about stimulus, stimulus class, behavior, and response classes. The last few weeks, we've talked about philosophical foundations, the dimensions of ABA, and the attitudes of science. And again, we're getting into more of the fun stuff. Yay, we're kind of done with that historical foundation and philosophical underpinnings, which, yes, they are important. But here we are talking about stimuli, stimulus classes, and really getting into why we do what we do and how we respond to our environment. So let's get into it. First up, we're going to talk about stimulus basics. Really, with a stimuli, anything in the environment that influences our behavior. So everything around us is a stimuli. And depending on what it is and what we need in that moment, depends on if we interact with it. There's other stimuli that influence our behavior and responses, some that we learn to by contingencies, learn to respond, and then some that are more reflexes or reflexive. So we can analyze those to figure out why we do what we do. Anytime you hear stimuli, think of antecedents. So when we think of our ABC contingency, the antecedents is all of the stimuli and environmental variables that influence what we do, like teacher instructions, a red traffic light, a worksheet, cold temperature, being hungry and needing food. All of those serve as antecedents. And then we have different stimuli in the environment that further influence our responses. A stimulus class. Group of stimuli sharing common property affecting behavior. And so the stimulus class often evoke the same behavior or the same group of behaviors, like traffic signals. So let's think of a red light, a stop sign, or a blinking, flashing stoplight. So these are all indicators that we need to stop. They're different stimuli, but they have the same response and they signal the same response. So many different signals or stimuli and the same behavior. There are two main types of stimulus classes, feature stimulus class, which are grouped by similar features or physical characteristics, like all blue toys. Or you can look at like the red lights. All of those red features are similar. Arbitrary stimulus class are grouped more by function, like clothing items look different and are not like pants versus shirt look a little bit different, but they're all clothes. The clinical application of this. So, why do we care about this? Well, we do care about how common environmental influences influence our responding. We can teach new stimulus classes to interact with new things in our environment. It's very important that we learn all of the ways that people might greet us to respond if that's something that's of social importance to us, or might need to learn what bells at school mean. There's different tones, so we have to discriminate the difference between different dings and tones in our environment, but we also need to know which bells might sound similar and mean the same thing and evoke the same responses. So we'll talk about stimulus discrimination in a coming up video when we talk about SD and MO. But we do have to both differentiate and generalize stimuli in the same class. So once we have generalized commonalities between stimuli, that forms a stimulus class. Also important for us to know which common triggers or common stimuli in a class might evoke problem behaviors. So if there's always a hitting or aggression that happens after, let's say, a work presentation stimuli, like anytime there's a worksheet presented or anytime someone says it's time to work or going to a specific area or desk, we want to group those together and know that those are common triggers in a current stimulus class that we need to help change, whether it's increasing motivation, assessing workload, what's being asked. So many things and variables to consider there, but we want to change that relationship. This stimulus class currently evokes this problem behavior. We want to change that response. And so there's a lot of ways to do that, which is future videos, but knowing that they're grouped together can help us get in there and then alter responses. So let's move into responses next. The definition of a response class is a group of responses sharing a common function. So like opening something, we can open a doorknob, we can open a bag of chips, we can open a package that comes. This might look a little bit different and have different topographies or form, but they all have the same function. Ways to define response classes are topography, so form or how they look, by function or what purpose they serve, and really both. We have within and across topographies. Within means same, and across means different. So, an example of within a response class would be like marathon training. This has the same basic form of running, you're just varying the speed and duration. An example of across topography would be soccer shooting. So we have a instep drive, side foot, chip, header, etc., different movements, but they have the same function and are part of that response class. Now, the application to real world or clinical settings here is we want to replace problematic response classes with other appropriate behaviors instead. So if we know that there's a group of behaviors that often happen under a certain stimuli, we can teach more functionally equivalent and appropriate behaviors that still get that same need met, creating flexible and generalizable skills. For the first practice question, a behavior analyst is working with a child who has learned to request a cookie when shown an actual cookie. The behavior analyst wants to expand this skill so the child can also request a cookie when shown a picture, hearing the word, or seeing the written word cookie. The behavior analyst is attempting to what? Expand a stimulus class, many different stimuli evoking one response. For the next practice question, a behavior analyst is working with a child presented with a cookie. This time, they're working on requesting the cookie by signing the word, pointing to a picture, or saying the word. So we want to ask ourselves when we're trying to decide which type of class this is. Are we looking at environmental antecedent variables, or are we looking at responses or behaviors? So in the first example, we were looking at a bunch of different stimuli. In this example, we're looking at several different behaviors. So the answer is, you guessed it, a response class. Thank you so much for taking the time to review these concepts with me. I hope that this helped looking at stimulus and response classes and understanding these different distinctions. Next week, we're going to be looking at operant and respondent conditioning. So be on the lookout for next week's video. Comment with questions, or if you have any examples and you're trying to figure out how to categorize that, comment below. I'm sure other people have similar input. And be sure to subscribe to get notified for weekly videos. Thanks for watching.